well, not even other brands, just other food, right? So, yeah.
But then, like, kids kind of want more chocolate anyway, and in the case of a Kinder Surprise, it kind of has less chocolate than, say, if a kid wanted a chocolate, like a small dairy milk bar or something. It has less chocolate, but maybe an equivalent satisfaction to use the toy in it, which might be a good thing given that kids are getting real fat.
Yeah, but it gets really hazy, right? Like there's like, yeah, but you've got to start weighing things, and it's like, hey, you're encouraging kids to eat chocolate, but maybe it's better than some of the alternatives that they're trying to eat, and maybe the toy thing is okay because you always get a toy, and it's, I mean, sure, it's a random toy, but it's like within a defined set of parameters, and you kind of know the odds of getting whatever you get. Kinda, and you're generally not unsatisfied when you get the toy, probably. But anyway, is this bad? Last one, I promise. It's even written on the slide.
I believe the census was yes, right? Isn't it regulations?
Well, the regulations are different in different places, and it's very worth noting that Australia has two core sort of industry bodies that sort of talk about video games. The IGEA and the IGDA. And the IGDA hasn't really said much about these because they're just fucking off in their own fairyland. The IGEA has put out an exclusive statement saying explicitly and in no uncertain terms that these are completely unlike gambling in any way, shape or form, and that they are completely morally justified, and there is nothing wrong with them, and no one should ever try to regulate them, the same way as gambling. Yep.
I think they're not like gambling strictly. The definition of gambling is sort of it's an extreme risk reward scenario that you can put in something and get nothing back. Whereas with a loot box, you're always going to get something back in a lot of games, from my understanding. I don't play a lot of games with loot boxes, but from my understanding, games with loot boxes, what you get, you often have ways to break down into other things.
But that breakdown is a lesser reward.
It is a lesser
So
reward.
like as you continue to buy loot boxes, does it become more like gambling because you are stretching out the like property?
Kind of, but you never get nothing from a loot box. Even if it's only a little bit.
But I think a lot of players would say like
If you get something, you get a lot of stimulus and that feeling of success, all the change that happens, all the light up the atmosphere. It's creating. That's if you win and you're constantly getting this sort of win. They have mathematicians that work out a appropriate formula to work out when to get you to win and how often and how much. So
on the subject of loot boxes, I think I'd be more inclined to think of them as a harmful thing when they give concrete mechanical advantages. When it's stuff like skins, etc. Personally, I don't find it like gambling because I've never felt any money into it. I know that some people do. But isn't the issue with them that if they are designed to make you spend money, a lot of players who are focused on the mechanics of the game might not be as driven to like some people who are really compelled by the pitching, punching something, and the uncertainty before you crack open that loot box. Those are the problem cases, and that's why that's like part of the transition to people saying that these are gambling, because people are exhibiting behaviours that is exactly lack of self-control, spending way more money than they should, which is, you know, if we look at the effect, why don't we do it? In some cases, the effect is literally problem gambling.
Yeah, I just want to interject, like, everyone's sort of bringing up really interesting topics. I just also want to point out that these are available to 6-year-olds as well, which is another thing that starts getting really interesting. This is available to 6-year-olds, but this is also available to 6-year-olds. So there's a distinction here where people start getting, ooh, because the value that's being created by a loot box, I think, is a lot less tangible, and I think there's something really interesting in the ethereality of the value creation of a loot box versus the value creation of a shitty little panda toy. Like, neither is potentially that valuable, but
is it also maybe the visual nature of the loot box in that you can create like this really high-end scarcity of these gold skins and like alternative skins from other games, whereas in the Kinder Surprise you can't hit those real extremes. Like you could buy maybe you wouldn't have to buy too many Kinder Surprises before you got your run of the pandas.
I'll just say, back in the day, and this probably ages me a little bit, but back in the day when Yowies were a big thing, I had like a $250 Yowie toy. Like they had some real scarcity in those as well. Like, so yeah, it's interesting.
And like a lot of these things are even very serious on it. Like a lot of things like are even like shopkins, and I had like weird monkey ones when I was little. Like these aren't even uncommon in children's things. It's like really wild. Like, I remember once when I was little, like you would open them up and you get these like little monkeys in their own balls, but you didn't know what they were until you put them inside out. You can put them inside out, so you bought them, they're about $10.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
$5, $10 a thing. It's not dissimilar. There are some that be like 1 in 1,000 chance to get.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
If you look at it on the cause of damage too, like these do a lot more damage to the population than what a Kinder Surprise does. Like if everyone was going out and buying Kinder Surprises by the box load, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Like somebody with a credit card could buy 10,000.
I've never heard of anyone
The kid
doing
goes
that.
up and tries to buy 10,000
Quite
Kinder
regular
Surprises at the
loot
store.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, how often do you hear about some kid blowing their parents' credit card on Lootboxes? You know, it's pretty common.
One thing that would be really interesting to throw in as like an intermediary between these two things would potentially be a pack of Pokemon cards. Because as a kid, I spent a fucking truckload of money buying Pokemon cards and then selling them for more money. But that's beside the point. But yeah, that's really interesting. There's definitely, at least I think we can all agree that this is a lot more contentious than this. So there's a difference in contentiousness here, and it's a little bit hard to pinpoint exactly why, and there's a lot of different arguments around why, but this gets closer. Like when you ask if this is bad, people are like, this, like you get a different grumbling. Is this bad? And I lied, by the way, just like EA. It wasn't the last, is this bad? So, is this bad?
Somebody spent $7,000 on Lootboxes for Battlefield.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. So that's kind of what I'm hinting at, right? So this on its own is kind of not awful, but then when you conglomerize it and like a loot box is okay. 1,000 loot boxes is suddenly like this massive problem. And when you have an industry that's sort of thriving on microtransactions, the way that EA, like they make a boatload of money off of those EA sports games. I don't even know how, but they make a ridiculous, ungodly amount on the FIFA games. It's kind of unreal.
It's kind of hard to get with a bad corporation, though. I mean, compare it to, say, a major bank that's one of their customers, or
Yeah,
a
right.
major P, for example.
And I think that also kind of raises an interesting point, though. Like when the banks were going through the 2008 meltdown, EA was the worst company in America on some like ranking of evil corporations kind of thing. So even when the banks were defaulting because they screwed everyone over and were doing dodgy practices, EA was still the target of ire. So yeah. Huh?
If everyone hates them so much, how are they still making all of this goddamn money?
Their marketing.
Yeah, it's because some people don't care that.
And especially with like people, it's like the target audience for that might be separate to say something like Battlefront whatever.
Yeah. The practice that high
buy Nestle ever again.
Yeah. It's the same reason Nestle still exists, even though Nestle is kind of literally pretty fucking evil. So, yeah, it's just no one's going to give up their Nestle stuff. That's a blank slide apparently. So, oh, is it? Yes. So, reward schedules. So these are things that are very worth noting. You guys should have encountered these before, but it's worth retouching on them. And I think one of the reasons that the loot box thing is so controversial is because they use these variable ratio reward schedules. So if you give somebody a variable ratio reward schedule, you encourage very fast behavior change where they're very likely to just interact with something en masse. And extinction occurs slowly when the rewards cease as well. So even when you take the rewards away, they're still going to do the behavior for quite a while until they sort of realize, oh, I'm not being rewarded by doing this anymore. And this is sort of where, like, this is the very typical slot machine example that's also sort of applied to loot boxes. Fixed ratio is the stuff that has like a very fixed ratio, so 1 in 3 times when you do something, you'll get something. So for example, in Monster Hunter World, which is pretty popular at the moment, there are lots of quests that are like, do 3 quests in the desert and you'll get an armor sphere. And so those are sort of your fixed ratio rewards. Then you have your fixed intervals, and these encourage very slow behavior change, and extinction occurs quite rapidly when rewards cease. So this is things like daily login bonuses. So if you get promised a daily login bonus for a week, you're going to log in for that week. At the end of the week, it's not there anymore, so you're less likely to log in. And then you've got your variable interval, which is a little bit harder to deal with, but it's like, I think MMOs kind of do this are the best example of this, where they'll have events that trigger on a timer, but sort of between a range of times. So you're not 100% sure when something amazing is going to spawn, but you kind of have to sort of check in on it every so often, just in case it does. But you don't really see these in a huge amount of games, which is quite interesting. But anyway, so the reason I bring those up is because they relate to Skinner boxes. And oh, that's what my missing slide is. There was Skinner box images here. Oh, damn. So, progression systems, this is an actual extra credits title. Progression systems, how good games avoid Skinner boxes. And that's its lovely image with reward leaping out of the screen and strangling a player. Yeah.
I wonder where they stand on this.
Huh?
I wonder where they stand on this.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they don't like Skinner boxes very much. But I kind of want to make a case in favor of Skinner boxes, in that Zelda has Skinner boxes in every single game, in that you cut grass, you get rupees sometimes. You cut grass, you get bombs sometimes. You cut grass, you get arrows sometimes. They are using a variable ratio reward schedule, and yet no one's ever complained about cutting grass in a Zelda game and how it's a Skinner box. So there's clearly something that differentiates these two things. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I don't think that you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, is what I'm trying to say here. I don't think Skinner boxes are inherently bad. I think that they can be used for nefarious deeds, but I don't think that you need to necessarily assume that all Skinner boxes are bad. So yeah. So I also kind of want to highlight this. So it's very difficult to talk, or I find it very difficult to talk around rewards without coming up with at least some discussion of addiction. And so if you've heard of the concept of addiction, you've hopefully heard also of Rat Park, but you may not have. Oh shit, what happened there? Oh, I'm just trying to click play.
The experiment is simple. You take a rat and put it in a cage with 2 water bottles. One is just water, the other is water laced with heroin or cocaine. Almost every time you run this experiment, the rat will become obsessed with the drug to water and keep coming back for more and more until it kills itself. But in the 1970s, Bruce Alexander, a professor of psychology, noticed something odd about this experiment. The rat is put in the cage all alone. It has nothing to do but take the drugs. What would happen, he wondered, if we tried this differently? So he built Rat Park, which is basically heaven for rats. It's a lush cage where the rats would have coloured balls, tunnels to scamper down, plenty of friends to play with, and they could have loads of sex. Everything a rat about town could want. And they would have the drugged water and the normal water bottles. But here's the fascinating thing. In Rat Park, rats hardly ever use the drugged water. None of them ever use it compulsively. None of them ever overdose. But maybe this is a quirk of rats, right? Well, helpfully, there was a human experiment along the same lines. The Vietnam War.
And that's kind of where it starts getting a bit false equivalency, but yeah. So but yeah, very interestingly, all the guys who had massive heroin addictions from the Vietnam War, overdosing on China White, they came back and there were very, very, very low rates of continued substance abuse, incredibly low rates of continued substance abuse. Even though heroin still exists in the United States, obviously, but you take the person out of a really awful environment and suddenly they're less likely to be addicted. So I think that's a really interesting thing when people are talking about games addiction. They often overlook the potential issues around, hey, if somebody is playing games and becoming addicted to games, what else is going on in their life that the only way to meet their psychological needs is video games? So I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but I think it's really worth considering and just something that you should mull over and meditate on at some point maybe. So your summary of Morality 101 with Cody is that you kind of can go into two camps here. You make you as game developers make psychologically abusive products that are a sinister detriment to humanity. That probably doesn't sound super good. Or you make enjoyable products that satisfy some psychological needs in a safe way. And unfortunately there is no right answer here. So you generally get told there's no wrong answer, but really there's no right answer here. So if you're building Skinner boxy kind of things and you're building loot boxes, and if you go into industry, chances are that you're going to work on a game that has a monetization model that you're not 100% ethically okay with. It's a very interesting dilemma that you may have on your hands. So you may want to think about exactly where you go with your use of some of the things that I'm potentially about to teach you. So I don't know what to call this section, in truth, but it's sort of some musings from Cody. I think we already did this. Yeah, we did. So gamification exists, and it generally really sucks. And one of the reasons that it generally really sucks is because they just give you points. In a study, like a meta-review of gamification studies, something like 95% of them only use levels, badges, and leaderboards. And when I say levels, I mean like just the arbitrary, you're level 1, you're level 2, you're level 3, without it actually doing anything. So points, levels, and leaderboards account for like 95 or something percent of gamification. And yet, a lot of gamification literature comes back saying, we tried this gamification and it didn't work. And it's like, well, no shit, you just use points, levels, and leaderboards again. And people have gotten completely desensitized to those things. So don't be like gamification. Make lots of rewards, then make more, is my general motto. So there are 5 fundamental types of rewards, as best I can tell, which are, number 1, rewards that give you access to new areas and content. So in IGB something or other, Fundamentals of Game Design, we talk about rewards of access, and that's pretty much what these are. Rewards that let you access new stuff. Then there's also rewards that change your interaction options with the game world. So these are things that change your facility. So these can be really interesting and engaging ways to change your game, but they generally have quite a large burden associated with how you modify things. Unless you go the cookie clicker route and you just increase your damage per second or something like this, these can be quite difficult to provide to players. Rewards that replete lost resources. So generally you have a finite amount of health, you eat a health potion, you get more health. So those are generally pretty easy to interact with. Then you also have rewards that count and track how awesome you are. So these rewards are generally things like your points, your achievements, badges, all those kinds of good things that you get within games. And you generally get quite a lot of these. You generally don't notice quite how many of these you get, but there are generally a lot of them. And also rewards that tell you that you're good. So there's a lot of literature to support the idea that just telling someone you're awesome is way better than sort of anything else. There's like a lot of literature that sort of says that those encourage intrinsic motivation, which is a really powerful thing to have with just telling somebody that they're amazing. And I think it doesn't surprise me that Beat Saber, which is like the most popular VR game that exists pretty much, tells you that you're awesome pretty much every 5 seconds. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to learn in that. So don't be like gamification, don't just use points. And so I ran an experiment during my PhD where I essentially tested the impact of a whole bunch of different rewards. Some of you may have encountered this game during your earlier years of your degrees. And effectively it's just a shitty little runner game where you encountered these rewards. And they were spaced out like this, and every person who played this game got about 5 minutes, well exactly 5 minutes of playtime. And the really interesting thing is that these rewards were spaced out roughly so you'd get about 38 of them within 5 minutes. Of 400 participants, 397 collected all 38 rewards that were placed in front of them. So every time people saw a reward, they went and got it, which I think is super interesting in and of itself. But beyond that, there's also this really interesting thing in that effectively the 7 different versions of this game, I basically tested each of the 5 reward types that I just said individually. So it only had rewards of access, it only had rewards of facility, it only had rewards of sustenance, etc. So that made up 5 of the things. There was also one condition where people got no rewards. There was just absolutely nothing in the game reward-wise. They just were in a walking simulator, essentially, walking past hazards and obstacles. Then I also had 2 versions, one with all of the rewards interlaced, so they got an access, facility, sustenance, glory, praise. Access, facility, sustenance, glory, praise. In that order, on repeat. And what I did was I made it so that they got a little bit of sensory feedback. So when they picked it up, they got a da-ding kind of sound effect, and people were reasonably happy with that. Then there was also a second version that was exactly like that last version, except when you picked something up, it went ding, diddle-ding, and like did like an over-the-top sort of sound effect with a bigger, flashier particle effect. It dropped like an in-world light that flashed and stuff like that. I think there was a bit of confetti as well. I can't remember, to be honest. But what I found was effectively, which is absolutely no surprise to me, no rewards sucked. It got the lowest player experience rating. Individual rewards, so if you just had rewards of sustenance or rewards of glory, I kind of lumped them all together into just individual rewards here, but all of those kind of suck. They're 3.8, so a bit of an improvement on no rewards. And then these guys up here are both like 4.5 4.35 to 4.4, and there's no statistical difference between these, even though there's a bit of a deviation there, but there's no statistical difference between these. So effectively, if you give people more reward types, they enjoyed it way more. And we tested to see whether or not there was any individual reward type that was contributing to that, and there wasn't. There was no statistically significant difference between any of the individual rewards. So it was literally just that there were more types of rewards that made the game better. So going back to this point, make lots of rewards, then make more. If you're just relying on one type of reward, your game probably isn't going to be as interesting or compelling as it could be. You're going to end up in a situation like gamification, where you're just using one thing and people don't find it compelling. Or at least you run that risk. You definitely run that risk.
Question: when you were cycling through access, blah blah blah, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
that was still 38 total, right?
Yes, they still only got 38 total. So they didn't get a larger number of rewards. They got the same exact number of rewards in like 99.9% of cases, except they got varied rewards. So it was, yeah, and so that's a really astonishing result, that it's statistically significantly higher than both individual rewards and no rewards. And that's like a large, like player ratings wise, going from a, like, this is a 5-point scale as well. So going from a 3.6 to a 4.4 is pretty fucking huge of a jump. So, and that's not by introducing new cool mechanics really, it's just introducing extra rewards. The reward of facility wasn't even that exciting. It was literally just, you got a bubble around you that broke the hazards. Like, it was pretty bare bones. Like, it wasn't bare bones. That's a skeleton. Anyway, so yeah, Cody's design considerations for you is that reward type diversity is really important. Don't underestimate it. We also found something else that's really cool in my PhD that no one has ever reported on before in the context of games, which is there's actually a psychological measure of reward sensitivity. So each individual has trait reward responsiveness, and I was the first person that bothered checking that out apparently, and what we found in the context of games was that, well, we found that almost all gamers are incredibly trait reward responsive, and B, we found that within that already quite deviant sample, trait reward responsiveness was still more important than anything else. So if you were a trait reward responsive in individual rewards, it didn't really matter. You still rated the game higher than people with low reward responsiveness. So reward responsiveness isn't something that you can control for, obviously, within your own player samples, but it's really worth keeping in mind that if you're doing playtests, you might just have somebody who's super sensitive to rewards when you're doing your playtests, which might skew your results. If you're doing stuff like gamification and you're only adding points levels and leaderboards, you're just doing it wrong and badly. Don't do it. And I have no evidence to support this claim, but it's probably really smart to use different reinforcement ratios too. I can't imagine a situation where it would be a bad idea to have both variable reinforcement ratios, as well as something like a daily login bonus, as well as something like a timed fixed ratio reward. Like, as long as you're giving the player rewards pretty consistently, I feel like you're doing it right. So I think it's probably really smart to use all the different reinforcement ratios. And so now I just want to give you some extra stuff to think about. So please watch this very carefully. Ah, shit. It's not meant to just become Pikachu. How many rewards has Mario gotten?
Does the sound effect from jumps count as a reward?
I don't reckon, to be honest. I reckon that's just an effect.
About 7 so far?
Yeah, he's gotten a few. He's gotten more than one, for sure. And he's like barely progressed through the level and he's got like fucking 7 or so rewards. Anyway, let's keep going. He's at least got 3 coins. He's jumped on a couple of Goombas, so he's got 1,800 points already. And he got bigger from the mushroom. So he's gotten a reward of facility, a reward of glory. He's gotten a couple of different types of rewards of glory, actually. He just got a reward of facility. How many has he gotten now? How many has he gotten now?
A lot more.
Notice that he went back for that. That's interesting as well, to me. Oh, stacked the jump. Oh, what's happening there? Interesting, interesting. Cool, so, yeah, I'm not sure that you guys necessarily see what I see there, but for those of you, a lot of you are in Capstone at the moment. A lot of you are building games, and a lot of you have less rewards in your game than level 1-1 of Mario, a game that's getting pretty old. And this, like, yeah, I really think that there are so many amazing things about World 1-1 of Mario. I know some amazing sort of write-ups on its level design and how you're always going to get that first mushroom because it goes right and then you basically can't jump over it because the blocks stop you. This is an amazing piece of case study, I think. Every game developer should study the absolute heck over everything that happens in this level. But yeah, there's something seriously amazing going on here. And I think the main takeaway that you should have from this is it's got a shitload of rewards in it. Like, there's a surprising number. Anyway, another thought experiment. What happens in Pokemon? Tell me about the main mechanic of Pokemon, remembering that you constantly get taught that game mechanics are the most important part of game design.
We're talking just about the 3DS handheld version?
Yeah, like the normal Pokemon games that everyone sort of grew up with.
So you enter it, you walk around to get a random fight, and then you use your Pokemon to defeat the other one using just abilities. And you click a button and it does a thing, and you click a button and it does a thing. It's like short animation.
So what if you replaced all these Pokemon with different coloured cubes?
Then it's still the same game.
Is it?
Well, sorry, it's the same. It plays the same. It's not the same game because those little guys are important.
Those little guys are important, right? But what are they? Yeah, what?
They're distinct.
Yeah, there's something really interesting going on around what these critters are, but without them, the game is still functionally the same game. So there's something really interesting and novel about the aesthetic and the visual portrayal of these little guys. And what I'm going to argue here is that each of these is kind of a reward of access, because each of these little guys is a new piece of content. Each of these little guys is a new thing that you encounter. When you encounter a Snorlax for the first time, it's like, oh, this guy's really interesting. I'm going to try to catch him. I've never seen one of these guys before. And so there's something really interesting about how you interact with these things. I think that without them, if you were just capturing cubes that had different statistical advantages, it wouldn't be Pokemon, because you're not getting a huge piece of core content that's related to how they exist. And also, Pokemon look really weird when you just anyway, I digress. So I also kind of want you guys to just look at this and tell me what the rewards are. If he goes, come on. Nope. Alright, sure. Screw it. Alright, so I also have some other things that I really want to look at. So bear with me, but we've got a bit of a list to iterate through. Yes. Yes. Shit. Oh no, don't do this to me. Google.com. Google.com. Second time works. I didn't keep these in my PowerPoint because some of these are ridiculous. Ah, fuck you. Don't try to decipher what my password is by how long it is.
So with the Pokemon thing, do you think it's the collection side of it though that makes it different? Kind of like Hidden Surprises?
I don't think Pokemon works without them being unique, right? And so I think them being unique has some interesting flavor to it. Like there's something there, and it's not just that they're characters, I don't think. I think them being characters helps, but I think it's that they're different, right? Like even just in Monster Hunter at the moment, I'm collecting the different weapons, even though I'm not going to use most of them, because I want to have the different options, almost. So there's like, yeah, there's something about...
Like trading cards and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like cards that you never going to use.
Yeah, you've got to have them all, right? It's this weird... Sorry?
What if you do want to use them?
Well...
I know when
Anyway, let's give this a watch. Oh, no, don't. So there's something really interesting about this, which is that this sound is super iconic now, almost. And I think one of the reasons is that it's just such a high moment, even though you're getting the dungeon map. Like, it's not really that interesting when you think about it, but that's still built up as quite an important event. And I think the framing of how it sounds and the interesting sort of framing of, oh, you're looking in something and you don't know what's in it, and then, oh, it's the dungeon map. That like tries to build up the experience to create an emphasis around it. And yeah, I think there's something really interesting and intriguing there, and we'll look a little bit more at that in some of these other examples as well. So there's also this, which is fucking amazing. Right? Like, just framing this about what it actually is, right? You're literally just bouncing a ball, like... What is this if it just told you you got 136,000 points as a little pop-up somewhere? If it just added 136,000 points to your UI off in the top right corner, how would that change this fundamentally?
It takes a whole bunch of impact.
Yeah, right? This is so memorable. This is super, super, super memorable. Like, I mean, it's got so many things here. There are so many individual pieces of feedback. It goes slow mode. The word extreme fever pops up. There's a gigantic firework effect. There was a gigantic number that popped up. The trail has a rainbow. Huh? Oh yeah, Ode to Joy is playing. This thing is flashing. There's cool clears with 50,000 points. It's giving you those rewards of praise. Cool clear. Ultra extreme fever. Like, it's shooting stars with a rainbow that sends fevers. And then it counts up the score. It doesn't just display the score, it counts up the score. Shows you you got 50,000 style points, then gives you a badge. I think that this is really important as a case study. I don't know why it's important. I can't tell you with any empirical evidence why this is important, but my gut instinct as a designer tells me that every goddamn thing about this is super important. Now, I want to show you guys this. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have probably encountered clicker games before, but this is Clicker Hero. You click on a thing, it dies, you get gold. You click on a thing, it dies, you get gold. As you click on things and as they die and you get gold, you can spend your gold on heroes who increase your damage per second, so that when you click on things, they die faster and you get gold. And as you continue and progress through the game, your heroes do automatic damage to the enemy so that you don't need to click it, and they die and you get gold. And this game is probably one of the most, like, Steam Spy has died, so I can't get you the numbers anymore, unfortunately. But I'm pretty sure this was one of the most played games on Steam ever, because players can just leave it open, leave it idle, and it just is playing and doing things, and you kind of feel like you're being rewarded even though you're not doing literally anything. Really, like, you're making a few choices every once in a while, but there's this constant stream of rewards. And I think it's really important to note that you level these characters up as well. So there's always a sense of progression. You've got so much money, you've got so many things happening, you're always progressing. There's shops, there's unlocks, there's specials, leaderboards, there's all these different things, all centered around this one core interaction of you click a thing until its health goes down and you get gold. It's taken away and stripped down all the elements and game mechanics of a normal RPG and just given you the progression system in its most bare bones way. And this game made a shit ton of money. Not that I'm money driven, but I'm also kind of really money driven. So this thing made a shit ton of money. I think that's worth noting. And something else that's super interesting, the game developers of this game have just released number 2 in alpha. And Clicker Heroes 2, they said they were uncomfortable with the amount of money that some people had spent on Clicker Hero 1, so they made Clicker Hero 2 cost a flat fee, because they didn't want people spending $8,000, $10,000 on microtransactions, which is a really interesting insight. I don't know what my stance is on that. Pierre's face tells me I'm skeptical too, right? But it's really interesting. I'm not going to tell you what to think about it, but it's really interesting. It's worth thinking about. And as you progress, you also unlock new levels, by the way, as well. So you're progressing through a series of levels that are just essentially reskins of the same monsters over and over, So it's giving you these rewards of access as intermittent things, but they don't actually do anything. You could stay on level 1 forever and it just gives you more and more enemies on level 1, but instead it's added this extra level and there's this extra sense of progress by giving you a number, and the terrain changes every so often as well. Anyway, that's sort of all I want to talk about Clicker Heroes. Now I kind of want to show you guys another awesome thing. Now these videos are super long, and they're the reason I didn't embed. Wait, this obviously isn't a super long one. I might have cut out one of the super long ones, but we'll see. So this is Skyrim. Most of you have played Skyrim. Most of you have hoarded crap in Skyrim. And what's really interesting about that is that players collect shit for no reason. This in particular player has collected lots of gems and displayed them in their house that really only they will see because it's a single player game. So I guess they're kind of showing the community with their YouTube video, but it's still super interesting to me that they went through the effort of hoarding all that crap, placing that crap, and storing it. And realistically, the reason to have those gems is to sell them. But people don't, which I find really interesting. So, hands up if you've kind of hoarded crap in Skyrim but not sold it. Right? You just hoard crap for no reason. Every potion you see, you take, and then you put in a chest somewhere because they have weight, and then you never intend to use them, you just collect them. And that goes back to my very early point about humans collecting shit because we're scarcity driven, even in a system where there is no scarcity. So it's really interesting to think about that. And this last one. This is the most highly rated game on Steam by users. It is Factorio. And I kind of just want to leave this playing for a bit, because Factorio is super fascinating to me. Because it's kind of like a clicker game, but it's also kind of not like a clicker game, because you're very, very active within it when you choose to be. So you're walking around, he's getting some stuff, so he's got some resources, got some wood. Fast forward a little bit, he's running down here, he's looking at some other resources, deciding what he's going to do, zooms in, has a look, decides to build some stuff, and when he clicks on it, he transforms his resources into different stuff. I'm not sure if that will necessarily count as a reward or not. By my book it does, so they've been encouraged to click some buttons, so there's a reinforcement that's happened. He's going to place a drill by the seam of it, places a drill, places a furnace, puts some wood in, and now it's cranking away. He's got this little iron smelter happening. And so, it's not much, there's not a whole lot going on just yet, but he's already gotten a whole bunch of rewards, right? So, let's try and work through it. He's gotten some wood from breaking trees. He's taken that, he's made a crate. So he's gotten a crate. He's built a furnace. He's placed a furnace. He's placed a drill. He's built a drill and placed a drill. And now that drill is automatically getting him a bunch of, I think that's iron, and is smelting iron into another thing, which is iron plates. So he's effectively got access to iron plates now as well. And he's off running around getting some more wood again. So we fast forward a bit, he's got some more stuff, he's got a whole bunch of stuff. He's starting to set up his factory now. So we're about 20 minutes in, and he's got this massive line of coal. And he's got a whole bunch of resources in his inventory, he can build a lot of stuff. Let's fast forward to an hour and 40 in. He's got another factory line doing its thing. He's got a whole crap ton of stuff in his inventory. Looking forward a bit more. There's some serious crap going on here. There's factories that have output a whole bunch of stuff. There's assembly lines. There's clearly things that are just pushing stuff through. He's got a really badly set up. Oh no, that's not too bad. He's got the beginnings of an iron mill happening. He's got some really badly laid out factories happening. And yeah, how many rewards per second do you think the player is receiving at this point? Yeah, many towards thousands is pretty much the answer, which is kind of crazy, right? Like when you think about Factorio, I don't think most people think of a reward treadmill simulator thing. They don't really think about it in the same way as Cookie Clicker, but at the same time you're getting more rewards per second in this than you do in Cookie Clicker. So I think there's something really, really fascinating about the fact that this is the best reviewed game on Steam of all time, and the fact that you get a shitload of stuff in it. And you are constantly, each of these is outputting research, each of these is outputting copper, which makes copper bars, which makes treadmill thingies that are all over the place that help you get more things, that help you get more things, that help you get more things, that help you get more things. This as well is a progression system. The threats in this game are ridiculously minimal. No one is ever dying to the alien swarms in this game, even on hardest hard of hard modes, right? This game is easy as hell, but the difficulty comes from you planning out your factory and just getting stuff and progressing and progressing and progressing with the ultimate goal of getting a spaceship out. And then you have the ultimate goal of getting as many spaceships out per second as possible. So that's what this game is. And yeah, I'm convinced that this is more or less the same shit as Cookie Clicker. But I'll let you have your own thoughts and opinions about that.
Has there been any research into like the value of each reward relative to like something like Peggle, which has got like huge rewards all at once, whereas this has got like thousands of like very low value rewards or rewards that their value is contingent on it giving you something else, which then gives you whose value is then also contingent on something else.
Short answer is no. Rewards are very, very scarcely studied because people, the huge bulk of rewards literature is about money, first off, which running studies like this with money just isn't feasible because you kind of can't give participants money, especially in this way. So games research has only just really started looking at rewards, and yeah, no one has really done it yet. But it's just so rational to me. When I look at popular games, you get a shit ton of rewards. Like even looking back to the Super Mario example, he got so many rewards in that first sort of 7-second block that it can't be a coincidence that amazing games have a shit ton of rewards in them. Sure. I think it's just very, very likely that there is a commonality occurring there. Anyway, that's sort of the major part of today's talk and the main sort of things that I wanted to sort of get you guys thinking about. So with that in mind, I'll open to Q&A, and if there's any interesting questions, happy to field those. And after that, I also would be happy to stick around for a bit to run a rewards workshop with you guys and let you guys think through some of your own reward systems and help you build those out. So first up, any questions? Yes, no, maybe. I know that we were sort of answering questions as we went, so if we don't have questions, I'm happy to move on. Anyone can email me. I'm highly approachable. So awesome, let's do a rewards workshop. Who wants to? Yeah, fuck yeah. Alright, so if you don't want to stick around for the rewards workshop, feel free to leg it. If you do want to stick around for the rewards workshop, I'm not 100% sure how we're going to run this. Hands up if you have an existing game that you are thinking about, that you would like to consider how you would apply more rewards in it. Okay, so that's more or less most of you. Okay, so let's do that. So how many individual games are there? Because I know there's a couple of teams in here. So there one
Individual, one person.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you represent your team, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright. So what I'll get you guys to do, just very temporarily, pair up with somebody. The third can join, the seventh can join a group of 3, and have a quick chat about your rewards. And I'll sort of circle around to you all as well, and sort of have a chat with you and see if we can come up with some ways to make your games more rewarding. And the cool thing about rewards as well is that you don't generally need particularly in-depth mechanics to create more rewards. They're generally super fucking easy to code and implement. Oh, Blake has paper as well because he's a prepared human being.
Everybody. I'm about to go grab pizza, so you guys will have to face Cody alone.
Dude, honestly, when you really the other day outside sitting there at the bar, very shocking idea didn't work. I was like, oh, hey! That guy. Yeah.
Sure is.
We're gonna anyway, yeah, have it. Anyway. My staff email.
Well, that's what I meant by
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's what we were doing. I gave us like yeah, exactly. Where
Oh, really? Who is the game when you rewind time, how usually make people angry whether or not potentially doing a PhD in that area after your masters. Whether or not
place they work for.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I feel like that would take a lot of testing to make sure it didn't fuck up like the latest stages of the day. So I guess you can
Like you run through your green pineapple that
No one else decided to do this foolish bullshit.
But they were online multiplayer.
Yeah, there is that. I don't know. They were really. Yeah, everyone goes AR. Oh, really? So it's a fantasy game where you play people like a little goal.
Is there any sustain, like, is it just like a one session based kind of game, or do you like level up and you like
in the original legend, they put their ridiculous shape that they is what you have the cancel like in our game, you take a chance and put it in the wall, and that's what brings it out. You put it together in the same way. It's a modern story. They settled the whole battle there because they move around. Because they move around.
Did you like kill each other? Yeah. Does it like have like a counter?
Really interesting. No one has ever proven that has any AI.
It's very rudimentary. There's something that is not it can be involved like this thing is doing little actions with the query. I think that's what I did in my is because
you got it every single reward, so you got it 38 times. I think you should only use it to initiate some items. So if I did a sheet every 20 years, I probably
I feel like language rules. Like you want to be like highlighted in full spot, like you're like the main, the head, like you no, like your character will be like the block that you're in front. So it's like sort of reward like that number.
which is what it is.
Yeah.
So you get the into online, they come back with a little bag, and they open the bag and they give random
I think they're all experienced.
Oh, boss. Oh, yeah, you're the boss. Yeah. Yeah.
So, my love.
Do you have any health packs?
I'm happy to give you guys a real
Just do it.
You guys have greater accessibility to potentially what's your name? Kevin? I'm creating it. Thank you. So, yeah, do either of you want to ask me about how to make it really more rewarding? Yeah.
Painting stuff, yeah. And then like
I would add a shit ton, a metric shit ton of Honestly, this is a piece of advice that I gave like my capstone students. There are two teachers in mind like that have listened to this particular advice, and both of them did extremely well, which I think is directly awesome. But it's have lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. So don't just have one point. Like I think a lot of people go into the like my general philosophy is add a bunch of stuff and then double it. Like literally double it. Because so what happened with one of the games is that I told them go add rewards. And they went and they added rewards and they have like you got a note here, you got a note here, you got a note here, and there's like sort of a 10-second delay between it. And I was like, guys, you only half the
computers where there's like a certain spawn location.
more than double it. And like I told them you want to run through a string of these things, right? And then they went and they did that. And then when they came back, it was like it was such an amazing improvement. But now when they jumped, they had arcs where they jumped and they went through a whole string of points.
Someone would have to roll on
Really
someone would have
satisfying,
like run like throwing
and
knives.
they haven't got it quite worked out, but every time like they're collectible musical notes, and each time they touch a musical note, the pitch of the note goes up a little bit. So it's
Nothing.
and that's that sort of sound effect and that increase. Yeah, absolutely. So once you get that you get an extra level of viscerality. And then on top of that, I mentioned the 5 reward ones. So rewards is probably one of the ones that are a little trickier to add in an endless one. I guess you want to create terms in the path where you create a choice. I would probably strongly consider that, but if you create a choice, even if it's a false choice and they both essentially lead to the exact same kind of path, the ability to choose something is generally a nice experience. Even a false choice is a choice.
But that's what I would like to do, but I just don't know how.
Well, yeah, we initially planned on having like so excited on together alone. Yeah, that was like at the beginning. But like we can't do it.
Yeah, like the witness does that, don't they? Where it's like you have connected to this way.
Amazing. Having something in there, in addition to that option, might be really nice. The first thing that comes to mind is one of these things for extra is under the test of how it's like. Killing one person equals seconds without dying, it's double kill, triple kill. And then it starts
Yeah, I think your makeup is like quite a realistic art style, like that sort of was flashy. Yeah,
It's very like
you did amazing.
it's like the witness kind of the movie, but like
I think it's more something.
oh yeah, it's more software, but like
Eventually,
if rewards
how
was
high
like a
does this
witness,
go?
I would be like, even the trophies for playing on PlayStation, I was like, sorry.
Maybe that's another.
Plus, like every puzzle in our game is already is a reward of access.
Yeah, there are also rewards of access and content, but if we're trying to diversify the types
Every 100, maybe not a but every X amount of distance, you cross a finish line that has a pop-up and says, you just cleared 200 meters, and it says, great work.
Yeah, you get your lot.
Every little while you're constantly needing to give feedback to, oh, I'm progressing, oh, I'm progressing, oh, I succeeded, oh, I got changed, oh, I got changed. And that is constantly going on in the back of your mind, and constantly getting a little praise.
I know, because it's like, yeah.
It still feels like a reward, at least it would to me if I was playing the game, as opposed to starting with blood and just finding it. And
Play a to y, and then y plus whatever value. Yeah, you just tell them, like, give them feedback. You can have the randomized feedback if you really want to. Yeah, I think telling cool, great job over and over is not super great. But if you just have like a little library of nice things that the game says.
You do have stories, like if you go looking extra, you'll find little numbers and then you change the radio to that number and then you get more stories.
Yeah, I believe it.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, there's a lot that you can do with it. What about yours?
It is like we have plenty of rules again.
Yeah, no, I know. We don't have any other stuff. We have like a tiny little way to change the interaction with the live out. And that's
the
You play it?
yeah, through subtitles.
So like, I guess maybe it has to be back to like results of congratulations or kind of fact that they do something really good. So like, I guess you have to be careful wording after like a long character.
Yeah.
wow, I did so good.
Like, wow, I did such a good job. Maybe in
The game basically
Okay, so you've got rewarded access.
Rewarded access, you have a, no, it's not the outside, it's we have and then we also have like a completion.
Yeah.
So there are three.
Cool. What about you guys again? Yeah, we didn't really talk about that.
A while ago we did, I don't know if I still doing it, but I know in our program we had an extra gun that just had like, a higher fire rate or which basically finding
probably what is the behavior of the game? Yeah, great. So what happens when you make a game? That's where it all
at the current stage, the player of the guys that are twice start and so I feel like maybe throw an extra piece of dialogue or something
Get the guns to get the different guns. Well, our most recent one, well, frankly, she didn't use the
we'll find out this week. You play that to find out. Like, I like getting. I already own games, especially online games, which was my house like that kind of guy. I think genuinely lots of rewards. At the moment, it sounds like your reward is very limited. You can only encounter like a few limited hidden objects, right? And I find that enemies and stuff that also elect, but doesn't necessarily do it. But like, so essentially, how do you unlock the use of the at the moment?
Like further into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Like you have to rewind for a certain amount of time, and then it's like, oh, thank God, I finally made it.
Yeah, like after a rewind, like we find kill five, but then when you've done that,
and this is potentially just a great path. You don't necessarily need to do right orbit. Look at something. And like, so if you're looking at something, it comes to so you don't need to do photo interaction. There's just like a little tidbit so that you're looking around and it's encouraging the you to look around and rewarding that behavior. Things are coming at you there, like little.
I mean, guns are changing interaction in real world. Like you get different types of something.
When you get enough,
like
when you get enough, it's also different to hit another. That is so you then sort of rebalance it just very slightly so that it's encouraging you to do so. And so it then you can look around to grab a full chunk of the currency, but then you need a couple of hidden objects as well to be more. When you're getting I feel like it gives it a nicer feel of
Pretend we taught you this.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you'll be able to can, and you get currency, which will let you unlock the next level.
And then you have like a point system or something?
So effectively, the one risk that I think your game has is that there's a delayed response between finding right? So you need to encourage the finding of the individual things more rapidly.
It's reminding me of the problem I had in the shop game.
It seems like you have like a I mean,
These big items, these big enemies in it. But it didn't feel like you'd be like, oh, really, then one would die, this one would die. But then once we filled it with these enemies we filled as well, I'm killing everything.
yeah.
Anyway, it seems like you guys are on track. I'll try to have this circle back to the start. Yeah. Hello, my lovelies. How are we doing? So, 3 teams here, right? Yeah. Alright. So, let's go first. You guys, if you have shit all over one, you
Yeah, we have none.
you have literally
One type of reward, which is like access to new areas.
yes. That has been something that I've been like,
Why did you say that? We want you to say yes.
I know, but at the same time, I don't play puzzle games, so I'm also a little skeptic. Like, I only like to give guidance around things that I understand. But one thing that you guys should probably be doing is that once you start looking at your environment, like what have you guys kind of brainstormed yourselves?
Yeah, we had like these are the types of like I have playing with titles right now, like clarity we can do like have them congratulate you, like say something like congratulatory, like positive stuff. That do you think about like the different like you can solve problems in different ways to get like achievements or like different areas, but still kind of the same kind of reward type.
And then like the
I mean, yeah, with like the glider and stuff, and I think that's a pretty big job. It's especially difficult with the style of the game. A puzzle game is not necessarily useful that important, but it's the serious kind of tone of our game, realistic. You can't add just like a point system in the corner or like a, you know, it kind of clashes. So I don't know how to do it.
yeah, that's how you
Yeah, that's
because you have so many areas of coming to your game, you kind of don't want to clutter it with just arbitrary mechanics that which a lot of these rewards I'm kind of discussing are kind of spaghetti-like. So I think you're kind of barking up the right tree with just having more rewards of access and potentially more rewards of praise, which can be like as long as there's a satisfaction in receiving it, which I think there will be with solving a puzzle. Because solving a puzzle intrinsically has a so pizza just went through. So yeah, I think that I really get the sense that with your games, having like a hidden lockbox somewhere or something that you can open and you'll find some thing, and it doesn't even need to be like I think of Pulp Fiction, right? And Pulp Fiction has the briefcase in it, and the briefcase, you never really get told what's in the briefcase, but it still drives the narrative. And I think that your game is lacking something that's like the thing that you're trying to open, like the penultimate thing. Like you've got the narrative of you get to the top of the thing and glide off. But I feel like if there's a thing you need to find and get and take, that like creates like a small psychological sort of you got the thing, you did objective A, and that's like something that you can sort of have sort of in the intermediary place. So you're not necessarily like at the moment you kind of just go from A to B to C as like you go to a new puzzle to get the clues to the next puzzle, but you don't have the objective. So the objective in the middle somewhere of you've got this thing and now you can take it. I think if you can manage to weave that into your narrative without too much effort, I feel like that would be a really, really powerful way for you guys to create some sort of sense of progress. Oh, I've got this thing. Separately, people really just like progress trackers. So it's not I don't think that it would disrupt the somber feel of your game too much to have like a progress tracker somewhere saying something like you've completed X number of puzzles in this demo, or something like your like some sort of progression thing. It's really hard to quantify and tell you exactly how to do it, but some sort of number that's tracking how many you've done. So sort of like where you're at, because there's no real sense of, oh, I'm 1% away from the game, I'm 50% of the way to the game. There's some sort of way of tracking where you're at. It's just a question saying you've done 0, 3 puzzles, sort of thing.
I mean, you have, like, 'cause I mean, there aren't many